So, do you have somebody that you can talk to about your marriage? Well, if you don't, that may be a real problem. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm Leslie Dories, your marriage coach, creator of the Hero Husband Project, and owner of Foundations Coaching. Now, there's this thing out there called, and marital doubt isn't just maybe, you guys are having a hard time, or maybe, one of you is just has some, you're just kind of in a stagnant period of your marriage. Those aren't good things, but generally those kinds of things will go away with time. What I'm talking about when I talk about marital doubt is whether you or your spouse have real concerns about whether or not your marriage is going to survive. And the thing is that marriage, we don't generally talk to anybody about what's really going on. It's not like if you're a parent and you're having an issue with your kid and you talk to your parents or your friends or your coworkers or your kid's teacher. I mean, there's lots of people that you could talk about the problems with. Same thing is true if you're having difficulties on the job, right? You can talk to your friends, you talk to your spouse. But the thing about marital doubt is that it's privately held. It's a very scary place to be. A lot of at that, they don't want to talk about it. They might bitch to their friends, but they don't really talk about what's going on. If you've ever known a couple who from the outside you think they have it all together and then suddenly they're divorced, you're just going, what happened, right? And a lot of times only one partner is experiencing this marital doubt. And the problem with that is they don't clearly share it with the other person in the relationship. And here's the problem: marital doubt sitting inside your own head. There's a very famous expression by Einstein that you cannot solve a problem with the same mindset that created it. So if you're having some really strong concerns about your relationship and it's just running around in your own head, you're not getting any other insight into it. And human beings are really great at the yes, no, black, white, 0, 1. It's either this or it's 180 degrees opposite to this. They don't recognize that there's a bunch of stuff in between because you can't see it. And when you're experiencing marital doubt, when you're really questioning whether or not your relationship is going to survive, there's something else called confirmation bias, which means you are going to pay attention to all of those things that confirm your worst fears. Then all that's going to do is to convince you that the relationship isn't going to survive. And then you start behaving in ways to protect yourself. And then guess what? Lo and behold, the relationship doesn't survive. Now, marital doubt is fairly common. About 20% of married couples or married people have this doubt at some point in their relationship. And and maybe if you're one of them, or maybe you're the partner of somebody who has marital doubt, and there may be some very unproductive behaviors going on. One of the unproductive behaviors is to set up a test for your partner without your partner knowing that's what's happening. And so and this frequently happens. And because the person doesn't know they're being tested, guess what? They fail. And then again, this just goes into that confirmation bias, because sitting down and talking with your partner about your concerns in a productive way is really scary. So a lot of times people will just kind of like, okay, I'm just not going to look at it. It's not really that bad. With enough time, it'll go away. The average amount of time that a couple is in trouble before they actually seek help, 6 years. A lot of damage can be done in 6 years. And so it's no wonder that when somebody finally reaches out for help, the success rate isn't really high. And so if your partner has asked you or has mentioned getting some help, you might have responded, "We're good, we're fine, everything's okay," because the idea of taking a closer look is terrifying. So it's better to pretend it's not happening, right? At least temporarily. But the thing is, it does not solve what's going on. And your partner has their perspective. You have your perspective. And guess what? There's validity in both those perspectives. The problem is that most of the time you're not listening to understand your partner's position or having them listen to understand yours. You're listening to convince them of where they're seeing things in the wrong way. And I'm going to tell you, that's a really, really hard hill to climb. And this is why getting some really good help, and I'd say almost from day one, is what is going to keep the marital doubt under control. Because when the two of you can actually really talk to each other and you can come up with a plan and a goal for your marriage, then you can be on the same page. But that first conversation is scary. And you don't, in listening to understand your partner or having them understand you, doesn't mean that you agree with them. It just means I now understand where you're coming from. And you're not having to do that passive aggressive, testing of them when your partner doesn't even know what's going on. And, so if you want a healthy marriage, you can have one, but you can't have one if you are not being willing or able to face what's going on. And again, just because your partner feels a certain way doesn't mean you have to feel that same way. But if your partner is questioning whether or not your marriage is in a good place, and that's not acknowledged and dealt with, you're on the slippery slope to divorce. And you don't want to get to that point. So my recommendation, big surprise, is to actually sit down with somebody who's not in the relationship. Now, this could be a really good friend, but that friend has to be unbiased. They have to know both of you, and they have to be willing to challenge your perspective. Or you can get in touch with somebody who actually spends time helping couples with their relationship. And by the way, you don't need to do this with your partner. This is not something that needs to happen with them. But if your partner has expressed concerns about your relationship, or you have some concerns about the relationship, then go to somebody, again, somebody who can see both sides of the equation, even though they're only talking to one person, and get it together. And this is really important if you have kids. So if you're interested in finding out more, contact me below. Send me an email at Lesli@foundationscoachingnc.com. or go to Calendly, look me up, Leslie Dories, and schedule a 20-minute 5-star relationship checkup. And we'll get this under control so that you can remove doubt from your marriage. So hopefully that was helpful. And until next week, stay loving.